At the KSMO studios, it's 8:31. Now is England Dan John Fort Coley. I really love to see you tonight. And here at KSMO tonight, we have Salem Tiger basketball from Steelville. Game getting underway about 6:45 with Tiger Talk. Coach Jared Patterson. Time for us to sit down with a few guests this morning. We were talking about the Mark Twain Beekeepers Association. We have Tom and Greg with us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. We're going to talk a little bit about the club and got a special event coming up in February. So it doesn't matter who wants to lead off.
I'll let Greg.
Oh, okay. Well, we're having a beginner's beekeeping class.
Okay.
It will be February 22nd, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., and it's in Salem at the Community Center, I believe.
Yes.
Down at the Armory, right?
No.
No, just community center?
The senior center.
A senior center, okay.
Senior center, yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's what it is. We'll have several different speakers, so you don't have to hear just one person. We'll have really good food. We have a brisket already being prepared for that one. You know,
You're teasing
we
people
like
at
good
8:30
food.
in the morning.
We'll tell you about the club and the food issue. So.
Yep, we'd like you to register ahead so we can know how many people are coming.
Sure.
And you can contact, you can go on the internet to Mark Twain Beekeepers at Gmail. You know, I should get some glasses on. The lettering's getting smaller here. I'm getting older.
Combination of both.
Yeah, my arms are too short now. It's Mark Twain Beekeepers at gmail.com, or you can call me, Greg, at 573-689-2254, or you can try to find it on Facebook at Mark Twain Beekeepers. Before you're allowed to really get on the group, Brenda will send you a couple questions to make sure you're not robots or Russian brides or whatever the thing is. You know?
I am not a robot.
Yeah. The cost is $55 per person, $90 for a couple. And if it's, a family, we'll do the lower price per member.
Sure.
Same as being a couple, just
right.
$45 for each additional
My
person.
brother and sister or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah,
Very
that
good.
type of thing.
All right, very good. The Beekeepers Association has been around for a while. Tom, you want to tell us a little bit about Mark Twain Beekeepers?
Well, actually, you're looking at one of the founding fathers.
What?
Yes, and I.
Well, you're not one of the founding fathers.
No. Greg and Mike. How can I forget Mike's last name?
Credit
Mike Credit. They kind of started it.
with Terry Phelps.
And thank you, Terry Phelps. And from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, the way the name came about was they didn't want to call it the Salem Beekeeper because, like people like Greg, who lives in Reynolds County,
Right.
okay, and so being in the middle of the Mark Twain National Forest, they researched it, and surprisingly, no other club had taken the name, and so they adopted the name Mark Twain Beekeepers. Because we've had members over in Houston County, Phelps County, Dent County,
Texas County, I think.
yeah, Texas County.
Texas
Thank you.
County,
Yeah,
yeah.
not Houston County. Yeah.
It's just so big, it looks like.
Yeah. So, and so it encompasses the whole area. We're not just Dent County or Salem.
Well, and that's interesting background to it. Does anybody have anything in the Mark Twain National Forest? Are you actually harvesting in the Mark Twain National Forest?
Yeah, I
Any-
live in the National
do you-
Forest.
Okay. So you actually, it's not just a moniker, it actually is real.
A number of members are, and there's some people over in Licking area who have their bees along the boundary over that way. There's a couple people out in Reynolds,
Sure.
the town of Reynolds. And Tom was at the very first meeting, the founding meeting of the club.
But
We
you
just
were
didn't
doing
know
something
him.
else at the
Well,
time?
no. I was beginning beekeeper. I think it was around 2014, 2013.
Somewhere in that
Yeah,
range.
is when it all got kicked off. And these guys were just very patient with me and kind with me. And if we have time, maybe I'll tell you one of my stories about them.
He'll make time to tell a story.
There's always time for us. Yeah, at the founding meeting, we had people come down from the other side of Phelps County. We had quite a diverse group to come in, from all over. And we've had people come from Kansas line and St. Louis for our classes in the past.
Fantastic. How many beekeepers clubs are there in Missouri? Do you have any idea?
Well, there's one in Rolla, there's one in St. James, there's one in Sullivan, there's ours down here. There was one over by Fort Leonard Wood. There's a lot.
Okay.
And they all meet on Sunday except us. We decided
Okay.
to not meet on Sunday afternoon just for people who are gone on the weekends or something.
And should you be listening to this program outside of the area and you're curious about it, just go ahead and Google Missouri beekeepers, and they literally have a map of the state and all the clubs
Oh, okay.
across the state. So you can find one that's nearest you.
Or if you want to come here, you're
Oh, yeah.
more than welcome.
Oh, yes.
You are more than welcome. I think people really need to know why beekeeping is so important, because we really do rely a lot on our bees, and I think a lot of people have lost sight of that. We continue to watch people try and eradicate instead of try and nurture bees, and they don't really know what the effect that might be somewhere down the road. Because I remember here a long time ago, we're just killing off bees left and right. We really don't know what the effect's going to be. I think we do know what the effect's going to be, because we watch our crops grow, we watch our flowers bloom, and we should not like to see those start to dwindle away. So beekeepers clubs are very important throughout the state. What would somebody, if a beginner, somebody just a novice like myself, who'd want to get into beekeeping, what would they need to do? Well, I mean, like you said, you were a beginner, you were a novice, you got a lot of help. Obviously, I would be clueless as to how to get started. Does the class or the club help people from scratch learn how to do this, the entire process?
Yes, we do. In fact, that's the main reason we set up the Bee Club, is a lot of people needed help in the beginning. There's probably more books on beekeeping than any other animal except humans. There's a lot of books, a lot of theories, and a lot of misinformation.
Well, that's my next question. A lot of books, but how good are those books?
Usually the beekeeper who writes it doesn't have an agenda, that this thing they did worked for them, and they decided this is the greatest thing in the world, and everyone should do this. But beekeeping is often local, and different conditions prevail. If you buy bees that come from Georgia, we used to say it was different genetics, but now we know it was actually epigenetics. The bees carry the same genes. Epigenetics is that layer above where whatever happens in the mother or the father, that affects which genes are switched on or switched off, and some bees do better in the winter or summer, but after a couple generations, they'll probably all do, no matter where you move them. But in the beginning, you're better off having local bees to get through that first winter. That's what we try to do.
Right. So local bees. So if let's say I was in St. Louis and I was interested in coming to the club, you would probably want to prefer more bees that would come out of St. Louis area than you would out of Denton County. Or is that close enough?
That's close enough. It shouldn't make a difference. It's the same climate. It's when they come from Georgia, where over 90% of all the queen bees are bred, or they come from the south and they're used to basically functioning all winter. They all have the instinct to cluster up and get through the winter in a cluster. But some do it better, some do it earlier. There's just a lot of factors. The biggest factor now is the almonds in California. 1/2 of all the bees in America, apparently, according to the statistics I can find, go to the almonds. Once they're in the almonds, over 2 million hives, they get sprayed with an enormous number of chemicals. They don't use a direct insecticide, but anything else with side in it, they get sprayed on them, because the guys are in a crop to make money. And it used to be they paid about $15 to $20 to bring a beehive out there that was two deep boxes.
Okay.
Now they're paying way over $200 for a smaller amount, because so many of the bees are dying and it costs so much to produce bees.
So why are they dying? Because of the chemicals? Or is
Well,
it the conditions changing? Or
I'd say yes, it's the chemicals, okay? But the people who sell the chemicals, say, look, our chemical is perfect. It doesn't kill 50%. And whether something is
That's
fatal,
perfect.
yes, that's called lethal dose 50.
Yep.
If you spray it on the bees and 49% of them die, it's safe for bees.
Yes, it's an actual scientific point.
LD
Seriously?
50.
Yes, LD50.
So now, who in their brilliant interpretation calls that a success?
The company that sells chemicals.
Yeah, the company does.
The beekeeper who's taking 20,000 beehives out there, collecting $250 for each hive. Half of them are dead, but by the next year he can build them back up and do it again. And when you're getting $250 a hive or so, and you have 10,000 of them, that's a fairly decent amount of money.
And
He also, oh, go ahead, Tom.
And what's strange is I had a friend from Michigan call me. His daughter-in-law is thinking about keeping bees, or started, and said she missed the opportunity to have her bees taken to California for the winter to work on the almonds and come back. And I'm thinking, why would you do that to your bees? Why would I trust some strange person to take care of my bees and then send them back to me? What am I getting back?
Obviously, you're being misled a little bit there.
Well, I didn't want to say anything to, but when I finally meet this person, I'm going to ask her that question. Why would you do that, versus taking care of your bees at home?
Yes,
Yes.
for a couple of years, I took mine out to Arizona. Have friends, relatives, two daughters out there, so take a trip to Arizona, set my bees up in the desert on a ranch that they let me do it, and I did not have any better percentage of getting them through the year than I did here in Missouri.
Oh,
So, but it was, a new experience. I worked commercial beehives, learned the whole industry out there, and it was fun actually. But it's a long drive there and back with a bunch of bees in your truck.
I know we talked about the class last year. We talked about getting started, and there's kind of a kit. I think you guys have made mention there's a good starter kit that would help people get along. But just because you buy that kit doesn't mean you could just go start raising bees. You need a little help.
Yes, you do. There was a story that happened this past year. There was a new beekeeper here in Salem, bought their bees from Georgia, strangely enough, set them up in one hive. Bees are doing great. They decided, well, we want a second hive. So they went and bought some more equipment, ordered some more bees. And the second group of bees that came in, they said were the meanest bees they've ever seen. So they called a friend of mine, Ann, said, would you come out and look at my bees? And Ann called me and said, would you come with me? I said, yes. Went out to look at this person's bees. So we went to the main hive first, and Ann and I went through the whole thing, and bees are normal. So we went to the first hive they got. Started to go through that. These were the most calmest, productive bees I've ever seen. I mean, they were not aggressive. They were putting away honey, pollen, nectar, the whole 9 yards. And we just looked at them and said, your problem is this first group of bees spoiled you. That second group is normal.
Yeah.
So, but that's the way bees are. So,
But how would somebody get started? I mean, is there a starter kit, number one, that's kind of already pre-designed, and then number two, where would you find such a
well,
kit?
you can find the actual. Let's divide it in two things. You can find the equipment a lot of places. Dave Schaefer's at 72 sells bee equipment to
Okay.
get you started. Family Center. Dickie Bubs has a little bit. Personally, I go to either Isabee's in St. Louis or Nixa over near
There are
Springfield.
specialty bee shops out there.
Well, they're not. Well, Isabee's is a specialty bee shop. Nixa Hardware's not.
Right, I mean, but there
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
specialties.
And you can even go online and buy your equipment. You can even build your equipment, and our class will get into that too.
Okay.
You can build your own equipment. And then it comes, where do you actually get the bees? And you can either buy a package of bees. They literally come in a little box. Or you can buy what they call a nuke, which is short for nucleus. It's a small hive. It has your queen, your workers. They may even have drones, honey, nectar, everything's there. We personally, and so when you come to this class, we're going to show you and tell you all that, and then we'll tell you our recommendation. which of course is get a nuke.
Okay.
Because if you buy a package, you don't know that that queen that's in the package is really the queen of those bees, or if she just got thrown into a 3-pound bag of bees.
She was just thrown into a 3-pound.
Yeah.
That industry works by the people in Georgia produce queens, millions of them, and then they get a package of. They go to a beehive that just come off the almonds in California, usually, and they dump in 3 pounds of bees. And if they don't have enough, they dump some from a different hive. They just dump them in the box until they get 3 pounds. Then they take a queen in a cage and put it in the cage. Then they put some sugar water on top, and it gets shipped off.
And that's what you get.
Okay?
3 pounds of bees, though, sounds like a lot of bees.
It is.
Then they're in this cage. These bees only live for 6 weeks on average. They're getting older. You get them maybe a week later. So now these bees are 4 weeks old minimum. I'm sorry, they're a week old minimum. Most of them are, much older. Then the queen has to be released from the cage. The bees know her scent by now. They have to start drawing out comb. And then she'll start laying a little bit. And it takes about a week before she's laid any amount at all. So now the minimum age on those bees is 2 weeks. And it's 3 weeks before the first bees hatch. Now the minimum age on your bees that you bought are 5 weeks old. They have 1 week of life left when the first small amount of bees start hatching from a package. It still can work if you have comb from, say, old hives. That's how that system developed.
I see.
But she can lay faster. But it still takes her time to go from 0 eggs a day to 1,000 and 2,000. It has to ramp up. So you have this die-off where the bees you bought in a package die off just when your younger bees are only 1 or 2 weeks old. So it's not the best way. You buy a nucleus colony, you get at least that many bees or more, and 2 or 3 frames of brood in all stages of development that'll hatch immediately. As soon as the summer hatching as you buy it.
Right, and a queen they're already familiar with.
The queen who, usually she's a new queen if you buy a commercial one, but she's already been laying in the box because the guy will try to make sure that she's laying before you buy them. And if it's a local, every local guy I know has her in there for a while if she wasn't born in there, go through her life cycle. It's easier to say born. But what you need to start, Tom started with a old-fashioned pith helmet type of thing and a screen and a shirt from the store, right?
Yeah. You don't have to really get these expensive suits to kick off with, and at the class we'll go over that. I mean, it's nice, don't get me wrong, but I just started with a veil and some gloves and a heavy shirt.
Yeah, and I did not have anything like that. I just had the nuke and had to work it without. But I did get a smoker. That puts smoke on the bees and tends to calm them down unless they're really hostile. So what do you really need? You need a knife to separate things. You can buy a putty knife, you can buy a paint scraper, or you can spend $10 and buy a proper hive tool. Okay. You need a veil, but it's cheaper to buy the cheap bee suit on the internet for, what are they, $12, $15? They used to be $12, and they work. They won't work if you're in a giant bee yard with 10,000 angry bees, but they will work around here.
Yeah, so, but, in the class, we'll go through all that. We'll show demonstrations of what these things look like, where you can get them. And we also have a section where we have a first-year beekeeper who describes their adventure for the first year. And the thing
I think that's good, though. You want people to understand that it's not always just going to be smooth sailing.
Oh, no. Well, and I'll tell the story I'm going to tell now.
I knew it would come out.
Yeah.
You can't keep time from a story.
I bought my nuke from Mike Credit and got it through the first winter. And so the next year I decided I wanted a second bunch of bees. And so I bought my equipment in preparation, made my order with Mike. We were going to go on vacation before the bees arrived, so I went out to check to make sure everything was okay. And they were, and I was working in the garden, went back and looked at my bees, and they were just bearding all over the hive. And I'm like, what in the world's going on? tried to call Mike and Greg, couldn't get a hold of them. Called Charlotte Wiggins up in Rolla. She said, "Do you have another bee setup?" I said, "Yes, I do." She said, "Brush all the bees off, put them in that new hive. If you come back tomorrow morning, they're still there. You got the queen." So I did that. Next morning, there's a knock on my doors. Mike and Greg, "What's going on?" So I told them we went out to my bee yard and we opened up the new box and they were all gone. They were still bearded on the first box. Went over there and looked at it, and Greg picks the lid up, and the way I was feeding my bees that spring, I had an empty box on top. Well, a swarm had come in and taken over the top box because it was physically separated from where the hive was. And that was the first swarm I ever caught. We got the queen out of that, put it in a new box. That was my second hive. I had to cancel my order with Mike, But again, having these experts that experienced people to come in and help me, I'd never heard of swarms. I didn't know what was going on,
Well, you've heard of swarms, so you just didn't know what they all were.
Exactly,
The different types of definition of swarms.
But yeah, so that was my first full year of beekeeping, and you just learn things every time you go out there because, what was Mike's favorite line?
Bees don't read books.
Yeah.
It's a very prophetic statement. We're talking with Mark Twain beekeepers here, and they're going to be having a special beginners class coming up in February. We're kind of giving you a little bit of background to it if you're interested, and we're going to give you some more details on how you can sign up for that or get registered for it here in just a few minutes. When we talk about, and let's talk about the importance of bee time. I know you've been selling honey for a long time, Greg. I'm sure you have too. Your own honey, local honey. I mean, we've heard it before. If you want to stay healthy, buy honey from your local area. It has all of your pollens. It has everything that you're going to need to live locally and a lot healthier. How true is that statement?
I personally know of people who profess that, yes, it helps them out with their allergies and the whole lines. Personally, I can't say it does, but then someone pointed out, well, it's maybe because you've been eating your own honey, you don't recognize the difference, which could be the point, But yes, and there's just so many beneficial things to your own natural, locally, harvested, if you will, honey, because all the pollen is coming from your area. Well, the pollen's bothering you. Well, that's what you want to deal with. You don't want to deal with pollen from California.
No.
You're dealing with pollen from here. So strongly recommend it. And the flavor, the flavor of the honey here locally is, in my opinion, so much better than the store-bought stuff.
Yeah, we just did a honey tasting at the bee meeting. Was it last week? Last week. There was 30 different honeys from all around the country. And everyone preferred the Missouri honey that was made right at Montauk.
Wow.
And we've had testings up in Rolla, too, where the honey made on the edge of Dent County, Reynolds County line, where that little bit sticks into the county.
Right.
That's where my bees are and where Mike's, and he won the testing up there. We have good flavor honey out here. Some of the stuff we've tasted is pretty horrendous. Also, you have to trust your beekeeper because, you can buy cheap honey at Costco, rebottle it, and sell it. It's illegal, but it's done. Or you can buy it by 55-gallon drums from a truck that comes up from Glendale, Arizona, heading to Chicago and stops all along Interstate 44 and sells drums and buckets of honey.
Yeah, and that gets bagged up as Bubba's honey.
Yeah.
And of course, you know Bubba, but what you didn't realize was he got it out of that 55-gallon drum, not from his local one or two hives.
So in every single year, when you produce the honey and we sell it at our local farmers markets, if you want the most nutritious honey, but not only the best tasting honey is what we're hearing as well, but the most nutritious, you want to buy it local and not the stuff you find on most supermarket shelves. Now, there's I think a couple small markets that actually do carry local honey. I'm not sure our supermarkets here do, but there are some that do. I know some smaller stores that do carry local honey. And I know that people are going to say, well, processed honey is a lot cheaper. I think the key term there is processed. It's diluted, it's filtered, it's everything that probably takes the best nutrition out of it, right?
Well, if you filter it, it takes the pollen out of it.
Right.
Okay, so then you're getting a sugar product. But most commercial honey is made, because I've worked for the commercial guys, by having a big old truck of high fructose corn syrup on a huge tanker, and you squirt the stuff out using basically a gas pump nozzle into the feeders, and the bees make their honey from high fructose corn syrup.
Isn't that kind of cheating?
That's
It's a
perfectly
reality.
100% legal because it's still made from the bees. That's
Sure,
run
I
through the
get
bees.
it, but it,
But it's
that's
not
how-
the local nectar.
right.
Yeah.
And it's still not, and if they filter it, first they have to heat it enough to put it through a filter. If you heat it, you kill the enzymes. Above 117, most enzymes die. Above 144, they're all dead. And what you can use is, it's not the living product you're getting from bees.
Pasteurized.
The local people here, we use a screen, a sifter basically.
Okay.
So there'll still be all the pollen. There'll be bits of wax.
Yep.
When I sold some, we did some with a more coarse screen, and you could see wax float on top, and we got paid higher for it because it had more in it. And local people can still cheat. You have to trust who you're buying
Sure.
it from.
Sure.
Know your farmer.
So, but most of and I'm going out on a limb here because I don't know this for a fact, but I would think most of the people selling locally are part of the Mark Twain beekeepers.
Yes and no.
Okay, well, then most is
One of the
yes,
issues.
no,
okay.
does not
one
answer
of the,
my question.
One of the issues with our club is we do not use chemicals,
Okay.
and that's one of the main things. And so there's some beekeepers that do, and so they don't participate in our club.
All right. So the Mark Twain beekeepers is pure,
And that's our
As
goal.
pure as we can make it.
pure honey.
Yeah.
You have to remember, the bees leave your hive. They can go 2 miles in any direction. That's a whole lot of territory to cover. So that's why you can never get truly organic honey unless they're on an island somewhere in the middle of the ocean, because they can, someone can spray Roundup on their
Sure.
yard or something. So, and then the utility companies love spraying poisons all over the right-of-ways.
yeah.
And the county highway people love spraying poisons, cheaper than mowing. So you can never get truly organic honey. I have a jar that came from Pitcairn Island, which I guess they only ship it once a year because I don't think a boat only goes there once a year, So it's in the middle of nowhere. And it tastes good, and it will be pure. But they still won't even label it organic because someone on the island could spray bug spray on their flowers or something.
Do you notice that the taste changes in some years versus others? We all know that the winds, when they come from the southwest, will be one way, northwest, or from the east. They're bringing in pollens. It is blowing in. And does that affect the taste of the honey?
Oh yes, in the time of year that you harvest.
Yeah.
Whatever is blooming makes the difference. Pollen and the wind won't affect your honey.
Okay.
The bees go on the flowers and they get covered with it. You can see pictures and they're all really interesting looking. There's a bee underneath all that. That's where the pollen's coming from when they fertilize. That was like the development of flowers and bees had to pretty much happen at the same time to have the system work. The pollen's protein. The bees need protein. They make honey from the nectar. That's basically carbohydrate. And then they produce the fat within their own bodies. But it's what time of the year. You get lighter honey in the spring. Okay. You get dark honey in the fall. People like to claim that they've got, I'm losing the word now.
Yeah, I'm losing it.
Buckwheat. They claim they have buckwheat honey because it's dark. What they actually have is stuff made from goldenrod and
Yeah, because
asters.
that's also what's blooming.
Sure.
Yeah.
And in order to produce enough buckwheat in a field to produce a little bit of honey, it'll take like 160 acres, okay? So, and the bees cover 8 square miles on the average. So it's all mixed, wildflowers mainly, and white clover, blackberries. And if we have a good dandelion year, you can get some really light honey from the dandelions,
Okay.
even when there's snow on the ground sometimes. but it's different, and every year is different. And the past 2 years have been terrible to make honey out here. We just haven't had the flowers we should. We've had other years where there was white clover blooming the entire summer, and we harvested honey 3 or 4 times.
We've had some really weird years here where it's either a drought or it's a flood, and it hasn't been that consistent spring, summer, fall. Let's say consistent, maybe more normal or traditional.
Yeah, once in 20 years, I don't know.
It's been a while.
So how normal is it, right?
Well, I mean, normally you have your dry spell during the month of late July through August. That's usually a spell. Then you'll get some rain in September, but not a whole bunch, and then it all comes in October. I don't remember the last time we've had that, where we've had the whole month of June was a drought. Then in July we had all this rain. Then in August it wasn't even hot. It's just kind of crazy.
Yeah, and don't forget, officially you may not be in a drought because there was 40 inches of rain. But when 9 inches came in one day and 13 inches came on 2 days, you had no grass growing or no flowers blooming. And the fall flowers for 3 years now have been almost non-existent. This year I had a little bit of yellow in my hay fields in the fall, just a little bit. And the goldenrod, I mean, my wife has allergies. She doesn't like the stuff, but the bees love it. I love seeing it, and it's been almost non-existent.
It's early September before, because August was fairly wet. Early September before we had no rain. Seemed to be a real bright time. There seemed to be a lot of color out there. It didn't last long because September was such a dry month, but I do remember it this year, and I thought, wow, we're going to have first off, I thought we were going to have a great autumn season. So with all this rain that we've had in August, we should have a fantastic fall color scheme. And that didn't happen because we didn't get any rain in September.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and remember, the bees cut their population when pollen from flowers isn't coming in. So through the dry September or whatever month it was dry, your population of your hive drops way down. And then when things do bloom crazy, it takes 3 or 4 weeks to build it back up. But then you missed it if you haven't the cycles we've had the past couple of years.
Yeah.
I raise cattle too, so I'm really aware of where the grass is, or not.
Yeah, well, and but it makes sense.
Yeah.
It absolutely makes sense. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the beekeepers class coming up. It's going to be at the Salem Senior Center.
Yes.
Okay, which is on McGrath Lane.
Right.
Correct. Okay, very good. And again, that's going to be coming up in February. What's that date again, Greg? You want to give us
The
more information?
22nd.
Okay, I'll let Tom do it then.
Oh, right. Me too.
You need glasses?
Yeah, I got them right here. February 22nd. And you can go to marktwainbeekeepers@gmail.com to register, or you can call Greg at 573-689-2254. And the fee is $55 per person or $90 for a couple. I will warn you, the joke about our club is we're a bunch of people that love to eat, and yes, we talk about bees.
Yeah.
So we will have a beautiful spread for lunch during the bee club, class. So come prepared, okay?
Come prepared to eat.
Come prepared to eat. Yeah. Do bring some serious questions. There's more information that you want to deal with, so bring a good notebook, and don't be afraid to ask questions. And I'm quite sure you will enjoy the class.
Very good. Are we seeing more people getting into beekeeping?
Oh, yes.
I mean, exponentially, or is it a slow increase? How would you call it or classify it?
Well, there's new people every year. It's much more common than it was, let's say, in the 70s or 80s or even the 90s. But I don't know, a story comes out or a movie or something, and all of a sudden you have thousands of more beekeepers than you did. But every year there is a bunch of new people. I was kind of hoping there's a movie out called The Beekeeper. And I'm thinking, hey, maybe that'll help beekeeping. And my wife and I watched it. And it was Jason Statham killing a bunch of people.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it wasn't a bad movie, but it wasn't
about
bees.
beekeeping.
The other thing is that if you call the phone number, my phone number, it's not a cell phone. You have to actually leave a message for me to know who called, okay? And I will always return a call if you repeat your phone number into it, and I can understand you.
All right, very good. And we want to remind people that and we talked about earlier, there are other beekeeping associations out there. If this isn't in your area and you're listening to it on the internet, and you just say, "Well, that's Mark Twain beekeepers," that sounds great because I live in the Mark Twain National Forest and I'm in Ava.
Yeah.
You know, they must be dealing here too, but
No,
that's
no.
not really the case, is it?
Again, go to the Missouri Beekeepers Association webpage, and they actually have a button you can click there, and it will show you a map of the state and all the different bee clubs throughout the whole state of Missouri. And but the thing that's unique about our club is, in my personal opinion, is we don't use chemicals.
Right.
And so for some people, that's a big issue. For others, it's like, yeah, that's right down my alley.
Okay.
For some, other thing that's different is we held our meetings at different locations each month, usually at a beekeeper's house, so that we can actually go into their hives and you can get experience very quickly if the weather permits.
Okay.
In the winter, we tend to just meet in Salem somewhere.
All right.
Yeah,
But-
and that is so important. I was visiting a beekeeper last summer, and I watched this little trick of using the hive tool. Now, I've been keeping bees since 2014, and the way she used this tool to help move her frames, I was kind of like, my gosh, that's ingenious. Had I not been at her bees, seen her doing her
Right.
work, I'd have never learned that little bitty trick.
And that would probably be my next question. Do the other beekeepers associations that you're talking about on the Missouri Beekeepers, do you guys ever get together and have discussions, or are there seminars
Well,
that are held statewide to try and bring you guys together? I just don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. There are times I know Greg will go to other beekeepers meetings. Sunday, I was at the beekeepers in Rolla, their group. They did a program on recycling of old equipment,
Well, that's a
which
good
was
program.
very interesting, and I learned a few things there. So, and most bee clubs that I'm aware of are very open to people coming and visiting and, being a part of it. With our club, there's no dues, there's no membership per se. I don't even know why we call ourselves a club, but we do,
Yeah, because you have a common interest.
Yeah.
Well, there's a hair club for men, so maybe there could be a club for bees, right?
Well, that's kind of like when I was a little kid. We had a sheet and we dug out a space and called it the Wagon Wheel Club. You know,
Yeah.
It's a club.
Yeah.
It's our club, but not much of a club. But anyway,
Yeah.
but the reason I was saying that is because what you just mentioned about learning from another beekeeper, and it would just seems likely that you would want to get together and share ideas.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but I'm sure there's plenty of ideas from within the club itself.
Oh, tons of ideas. Somebody will say, I did this and I had real good success, or I did this and it didn't work out for me, and there again, Greg and I could do the same thing, and he has great success, and mine just falls apart.
Well,
because
that's with anything.
yeah, each hive is uniquely different. In fact, some people recommend starting out literally with 2 hives, so that you can see the difference between them. It's like that beekeeper I was telling you
Sure,
about.
sure.
They bought that second one, and they got a normal set of bees. That first set of bees that's everybody's dream, is
Yeah.
what they got for that.
Yeah, timid, lovely, calm
Yeah.
bees.
And productive.
Yeah, and
you know?
productive.
Yeah. So, but that's just the way, and that's the enjoyment to me for bees, is that every hive is totally different.
And that's what makes this so unique. Anybody can do this. Anybody.
Yeah. And there was a gentleman at the bee club meeting Sunday in Rolla who was now moving towards horizontal hives because, quote unquote, I'm getting older and I can't lift that much weight anymore. So there are ways to work around any, I'm going to use the word handicaps you may have, and we won't really get into a lot of that at this first year bee club meeting, but on the sideline, if you want to ask somebody about it, oh yeah, I'm sure they'll share their information with you.
And that's what this is all about. If you're interested in becoming a beekeeper, this is an opportunity for you. It's not very expensive, and you're going to get enough in food to probably cover the cost. and I'll go ahead and read this one because I've got my glasses handy. The beginners beekeeping class being February 22nd. That's actually Washington's birthday, the real one.
Okay.
The real birthday. 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. in Salem at the Salem Senior Center. That's the one on McGrath Lane. And a traditional lunch meal I love how they say mouth-watering comfort foods will be provided. Trust me, they love to eat. Please register by February 1st. The time is kind of running out on that. Call Greg, 573-689-2254, or go to the Mark Twain Beekeepers at gmail.com. That's Mark Twain Beekeepers. That's MarkTwainBeekeepers at gmail.com. And you can find out more information there. Do submit that. Registration. We'll have to have your name, your address, phone number. Please get signed up as soon as you can. The cost, $55 per person, $90 for a couple or a duo, as Greg mentioned. It could be brother and sister, or two brothers, or two sisters, or two neighbors.
Well, even if it's parents and two kids, they'll get the lower price, or $45 per person, that type of thing.
Make it a family affair. Get everybody involved. Why not?
We've had people who have done that.
I think it's a good idea. So I guess one of the questions that somebody might have is, how much time does it take to be a beekeeper? A day or a week?
I would say during the busiest time of the season, at most, 3 hours a week?
Yeah, probably in the spring, if you have 4 or 5 hives and you go in there a lot and doing stuff, 3 hours a week. In the winter, pretty much 1 hour every couple months. Okay.
Well, I bet some question that people say, well, I don't have time in my schedule. 3 hours a week is pretty flexible.
And that is if you have multiple hives and you're doing stuff. Say you're building new colonies or something. If you just have to walk out there, start your smoker, blast some smoke in there, put on your suit, open it up, you can be in and out of the hive in 10 minutes.
Yeah. It's like today. I'm going to go out, and when the weather gets closer to 50 degrees, and I'm just going to walk into my hives and see if they're flying in and out.
There you go.
And that's all I'm going to do. So, but I want to make sure that they've made it through this winter is what I'm doing.
Right.
So,
Well, and you're all excited about this weekend. It's supposed to be 57, I think, Saturday, and 65 on Sunday. So it should get the bees moving a little bit, you would think. Anyway, this is a very interesting class. You heard a lot about what you're going to hear there, but they're going to give you a lot more details and answer any questions. And you may have something specific to your location that you want to know. They're more than happy to sit down with you. Very personable people, very good people. And if you want to make that honey right at home and serve it to your children or grandchildren, I think it's a heck of an idea to do it. Beginner's Beekeeping class, again, February 22nd, but you do need to register by Saturday. That's the February 1st day. Or make sure it's in before Puxatawny Phil comes out and gives his prediction. That'll be on Sunday, so you definitely want to make sure that's all done before that. All right, guys, anything else to kind of wrap up our time together here?
No, I just appreciate you letting us come on.
Oh,
yes,
it's our pleasure. I'll let people know that this is an opportunity for you to become a beekeeper and find out the ins and outs. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. But for $55 a person or $90 for a couple, it's a great investment, possibly into a new hobby for you, or even into a new venture for you. I know, as I mentioned earlier, Tom does sell his honey at the farmer's market, which, by the way, that's coming up very soon.
Yep.
And I'm sure you'll be back.
Yep.
Okay. And that's local honey, so we will always, I guess that's a little plug for Tom. Ching, ching.
Well, thank you.
But, and it's excellent honey. Excellent honey. He has brought me honey in the past, and I have bought honey from Tom in the past. So I am a good I'll say a customer. I should probably say a good customer. Mm-hmm. I'm not up there every Saturday buying honey from him, but definitely want to make sure that you check that out and do look into the benefits of honey and how it can keep you healthier.
Oh yes,
it really is. It's a magical sweet tasting way of staying
And
healthy.
another thing, when you're buying local honey, if it's crystallized, don't worry about it. That's the natural process of what honey does.
Right.
You know, it's just the way it is. People see crystallized honey and they just back off, and it's like, no, it's natural. That's why it's crystallizing. You know,
right.
so
It's still good.
it's still good.
Yeah, still good.
You can just warm it up to 110 degrees, no higher, and it will re-liquefy perfectly.
Right. I used to put mine in water in a pan when we got that way, and then warm it up slowly, and then once you got up to near boiling, back it off.
So,
And
and you'll learn all those tricks. And then, of course, if you really want to go crazy, you can learn to make mead with it.
there you go. We have producers that do that.
We have
right
a mead
now.
producer here in town. Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. Very good. All right. Well, guys, thanks for coming in. Greg, Tom, appreciate your time and making the trip here. And Tom, good luck today checking out your bees.
Thank you.
I really do appreciate that. My name is Stan Stevens on KSMO AM 1340 FM 95.7, and we're streaming it at KSMORadio.com, KSMO Stream Facebook, and KSMO YouTube. Gentlemen, thanks again for coming in. And your hometown